I really want to go on the record and say this is, ironically, because it's a fucking Marvel movie, it's a watershed moment in cinema. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Real Impact. I'm your host, Tom Bilyeu, and I took myself from scrounging in my couch cushions to find enough change to put gas in my car to building a $1 billion business on the back of things that I read, movies that I watched, TV shows, everything. There's so much empowering information out there. You just have to know how to extract it. And that is the idea behind this show, taking a look at films, TV shows, etc., and pulling out the amazing stuff that they have to offer. On my left is the good doctor of finesse, and on my right is Casey Files Elliott. And today we are talking about Black Panther. Spoiler alert. This, what? For shame, a deep and abiding shame in her house. This movie, this is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. And our first segment up is Initial Impact. What did you guys think? I want to know how this movie hit you. What was its impact?
You know, man, I'm first going to say that I was so excited to see this movie. I couldn't wait to see Black Panther. If you notice, I don't have a Black Panther costume. I would have worn it if I did. I will have one soon.
So much shame.
So I decided, I was like, I'm going to wear all black. I'm going to wear, close to being black hat, black t-shirt, black pants, black shoes. I'm going to try not to smile today because I don't want you to see anything white on me today. It's just going to be all black, everything. But I know I can't help smiling, so I'm going to smile, especially because this movie made me smile. So, man, my initial impressions for sure. At first, I was like, what is this movie? It's like, what am I watching? There's just something about it. It was just different. It was different. The feel of it, and I remember thinking, like, man, this is overhyped. I don't know, man. There was even a point where it's like, do I walk out? I don't know.
What?
I don't even know why. I can't remember even when I felt that. Mind you, this was early. But man, let me tell you, as the movie started going, I don't know. I think it was just a flood of emotions. I think I was having a moment. And I'll get into later, but I think I was just having moments. So I couldn't quite process it. My mind was just going everywhere. But man, I loved it. I loved it. Black Panther delivered. I enjoyed it. It was fun visually. It was beautiful. The themes were there. They had some heavy themes, but it wasn't in your face. It was just nice. It was like an undertone. The cast, man, I love the cast. All great performances, all great actors, everything all around it. The music, the tribal traditions. And just being in the theater, man, let me tell you, and I'm wondering if you guys experienced this too, but just sitting in the theater, it was killing me how people were showing up in dashikis.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And wearing garbs. And the part that got me choked up was like before the movie started, I saw this old man with the cane, this old brother with the cane walking in. He's like, come on, Charlotte, come on. And he was walking with the cane, and his little sister was walking up the stairs, and she was like in her little dashiki, and I was just like,
The tears
don't do this to me yet. The movie hasn't even started. So I think that's why I couldn't process everything, because I was in my emotions. I was in my feels. But I loved it. I enjoyed it. I can't wait to dive in and talk about Black Panther. Black Panther.
There it is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to smile at Black Panther.
Yeah.
Break it down, Casey.
All right, well, I mean, I want to do this like all the time now because I loved it. But it's funny you said in the beginning that you weren't certain. I was not close to walking out, but I did have in the beginning, it took me a minute. Like when they got into the scene where they were fighting for the king position, I was just like, oh, I don't know if I like I was more distracted by the visuals, I think, for a minute. It just was like not real world to me for a second.
The cliff was terrible. You can just say it.
What's that?
Like the CGI on the cliff was ridiculous.
Yes. That was
ridiculous.
It totally just brought me out of it. But once we got past that, like I was in. The storytelling was amazing. The women, which we're going to talk about later, were so awesome. And I just am so excited about it and love the way they were portrayed, love the performances, loved everything. I'm very excited. Black Panther.
Damn it. These are always better when we disagree vehemently and we get to like argue, and I can see that we're just not going to have nearly enough of that today. And I will say, in fact, here's something I disagree with. From the fucking jump, I was in this movie because of Sterling K. Brown.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
How great was it that he's the first person you see?
Yeah.
Dude, so it tripped me out because I just assumed he was a good guy.
Yeah.
So I went on this like weird like moment where it's like, there's so much like kindness in his face and stuff. So it was like, wait, he's a bad guy. So that was a cool moment, which really made it. I think they follow through with this, like who's right, who's wrong. There's a lot of really cool moments later. Like one thing that I know that we're gonna debate is when the general has to decide, am I loyal to a man or am I loyal to the throne? That was fucking interesting. So it's like all these different moments where it's like not exactly clear cut when he sort of turns on his own father and his belief system and the way he was like, what kind of man, what kind of king, what kind of man does that? And I thought, whoa, I literally have the chills right now, like thinking about it. So I was with it from the jump. This movie is not fucking perfect though. I was mortified by the CGI on the waterfall scene. Like that was ridiculously
I was like,
bad.
is this done purposely?
I was like, how can I spot the repeated image on the cliff?
That was just jarring. And then there was, I thought the fight sequences were an atrocity. But the themes in this movie were handled so unbelievably well. You want to talk about a minefield. I couldn't believe that Marvel let them go as far as they did, which I thought was in-fucking-credible. And I've been saying for a long time that the superhero genre is about to implode. Like, people just can't, you just can't fucking keep doing superhero movie after superhero movie. Yeah. And I've got to admit, like, this one gave me pause that, like, there's more life if Marvel's willing to let creators take a risk. And they let creators take a risk here. I think that it paid off. What's the director's name? Coogler?
Yeah. Ryan
so
Coogler.
I've never seen any of his other two movies. So this was my first introduction to him. I know he co-wrote it as well. The writing is fucking phenomenal. I was really impressed because I thought, oh God, this could really go weird. Either it could fail to live up to black expectations or it could alienate every other race. I thought it just told an awesome story, man. And I felt totally into it from the jump. Yeah, I just thought that a movie that could have gone wrong in so many ways went right in so many more. It was just really, really well done. All right. Our next segment, Cold Stone Themery. This is where we dive into some of the themes in the movie. This movie had no shortage of themes. Files, what one are we going to dive into?
All right. So Michael B. Jordan plays the villain of the film, Killmonger. And he has this great character arc where I think it expresses both the importance of ambition and believing in yourself despite whatever circumstances you may find yourself in, but also warns against the dangers of vengeance. And that plays out throughout the whole film. So what are your thoughts on Killmonger's character arc?
Yeah, God, man. Killmonger, first of all, it was a tough character to assess because, for one, I'll start with, I love Michael B. Jordan as an actor. He is good in everything he does, everything he touches. Even when no one knew him as Michael B. Jordan, when he was just Wallace on The Wire, he was even fantastic in that. It's just something about him. I don't know what it is. He has it. Like, there are certain people you know really early on, this guy's going to have a career, and that's him. So I was just excited to see him, and just the way he played the characters. Just there was something very menacing about him right away when you see him in the museum, when he's looking at the African art, and he's challenging the collector. So then you get to know him. You're like, okay, this guy is violent. He will kill for whatever. He even says it. He goes, you see all these marks on my body? It's for each kill. And you know in the previews and seeing the poster, you know this guy is going to has killed a bunch of folks because he is covered with that. So this guy clearly is extremely, extremely violent, and he has terrible intentions, and he sees the kingdom differently. You know, it's almost like he was the Malcolm X of the civil rights movement, and T'Challa, Black Panther, was the Martin Luther King. One seeing it more peaceful, and another person being like, no, by any means necessary, we're going to bust some ass to get back and take care of the world of oppression and this and that, blah, blah. So that's how I saw it, and I'm sure that was extremely intentional because there were many themes. So it was hard to side with him. But as you get towards the end and you get to understand what happened to him and that he was left, another theme that's very intentional, I mean, hands down, and these are the undertones, you know what I mean? In the black community, in the American black community, we always hear of the epidemic of the father not being in the house. It's just an epidemic. There's a stat to the point where the stat is taken to a crazy extent because it's not always the case everywhere. But it is a big concern. It's a big conversation that's always in the African-American community. And they wrote this in there with that. Like, they chose to create this narrative around this character who was angry because his father wasn't there. His father wasn't around, despite the fact that he was murdered or whatever. His father wasn't around. He grew up without a father in a tough system, a system that is kind of rooted against him. So you kind of, in that sense, I started feeling for him. He was just a kid who was misdirected and is really sad. He has great intentions, but he's been misguided and misdirected because he didn't have that father figure, and he's angry. So that killed me, and it's always an emotional thing for me. And they did that with his character also in Creed, not having Apollo. He plays that character really well. Michael B. Jordan, always play a character without a father because you're going to kill it every time. So, again, you hate him, but at the very end, that moment, when he said, my father always told me about seeing this beautiful land of Wakanda, and I thought it was just a fairy tale. You know what I mean? And then T'Challa takes him up on the hill, and it's a callback to T'Challa, his father telling him about the sunset of Wakanda. And you just never forget. It's the most beautiful thing, this and that. And he allows him to see the sunset, this mystical place that Killmonger has always seen as this, myth, but he gets to actually see this beautiful sunset as he's dying. That part, let me tell you, man, I was just rubbing my thighs. It was like, you killing me, Michael B. Jordan, aka Killmonger. So to me, what they did with that character is absolutely amazing. It goes down to what you always talk about when you compare Batman to Superman. You know what I mean? And there are just some villains that are just villains for villains. Like I forgot where you mentioned this the other day, Tom, where you got to have a villain that needs a good reason to be a villain. Like, God, I forgot what your comparison was. I'll let you get to it because I know you'll talk about it. I'm sure you'll remember. But a villain has to have a good cause. And it almost has to be this juxtaposition where you're kind of behind them, but you're not. Because that, to me, what makes a good villain. So Killmonger, man, they killed it with Killmonger. So I forgot exactly what your question was, but that's how I feel about Killmonger.
That was great. Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with most of what you said. For me, I was so invested in his character. I dare say more so than T'Challa.
Me too.
And interestingly enough, but I think it is because he has all these struggles to go through. You see, I don't know, he was just such a complex and layered character. And the moment you're talking about at the end where T'Challa brings him to see the sunset, and I think I wrote down, he says, I was just a kid from Oakland believing in fairy tales. I was like, definitely made me cry. Just the trajectory of his character. Because what I think is interesting is T'Challa was given everything. He was born to be, am I saying that? I'm saying it right.
T'Challa.
Right? T'Challa. T'Challa was born to be a king. And that's what he was raised to become. Not that there aren't struggles in that, but it's more interesting to me to see Michael B. Jordan's character's struggles, left behind in horrible circumstances without his father, and how, even though he ended up using the skills he acquired for sort of evil purposes, it's just fascinating to see how he pulled himself up. When they had the scene where Martin Freeman's character, the CIA agent, describes I think it was him, describes what he did in the military. You're like, wow, he has made himself a badass.
And he even says it himself. He's like, I've killed Iraqis, I've been to Afghanistan, I've done this, and blah, blah, blah. And he just lists it out before the fight. What
I love is that he saw a possibility for himself. He had that dream that his father planted in his head, you can go to Wakanda one day, this is your birthright, whatever. And he used that to make himself the best he could be. Unfortunately, there was also that bitterness and that vengeance that he had that was tied with his ambition. Yeah. And so that is, I think, what led him down the wrong path. But the fact that he got himself there was actually inspirational for me. And I was at times, I knew he was not the right choice to be the king, but I totally understood his path and how he got there. And I felt for him so much. And I wish it could have been different. So.
Yeah, I mean, this was really a fun take, and I think that your juxtaposition of the two characters of the King, T'Challa, and Killmonger, which I wish what's his name? They
Eric.
do say it.
Eric
with a K.
I guess because he grew up in America. So you've got T'Challa and Eric as the juxtaposition of the two ways to approach any injustice, right? So you've got the Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela approach, which is build bridges, which, by the way, that fucking speech at the end, and this the reason that I like this movie actually isn't for the Marvel stuff. It wasn't for the superhero stuff, which I thought was fine. And it's been like most of the Marvel films, which are fine.
Yeah.
But the ones that really do something special for me, like Spider-Man Homecoming, which dealt with like, you have these amazing powers, but you still feel weak and scared. Like, that was cool. And then seeing this, where they went into a more political and really fucking dealt with it, which was, okay, here are your two choices. Like, you can just mow people over and kill. And I think everybody watching that opening moment in the museum where he says, oh, so you bought this stuff? Tell me, you know, what price you paid or whatever it was that he says about the artifacts, and then just takes it. You're like, yeah, okay, that's fucking hard to argue.
Yeah.
You don't agree with his methods, but his point is like there. It's really immutable, right? So, and then later at the end when he says, I think we can still save you. And so leaving the dagger in for people to understand that once you pull it out, you bleed to death. Like, that's real, right? So leaving it in is actually the thing that's keeping him alive, which is awesome because it gives him this moment of like, it's not the word I'm looking for, but autonomy, where he does it himself, right?
Yeah.
So in doing that, and then makes the statement that he made, which for me literally made the film, when he says, why? So you can lock me up? I'd rather instead bury me at sea with my other brothers and sisters who would rather die than be in bondage, or who knew that death was better than bondage. Yeah. And I was like, fuck, right? Because it's a Marvel movie, kids. Like, it's one thing when a sort of lower budget film that's not taking the risk with like a fucking multi-billion-dollar franchise.
He said the word slave ship.
It was really cool.
I was like, whoa.
And his marks on his body, like, that's to me a clear visual reference.
Yeah,
that's like him represented as a slave, being marked up.
It was incredible. And so for him to pull it out and die, and the way that they shot it was just like, you get his points. You disagree with his approach. So going back to the theme of like, at what point are you consumed by vengeance, right? Because he has this amazing point. And while the T'Challa character doesn't have as much to do, so it's like he's not the flashy character.
Yeah.
While I was watching the movie, I was like, he isn't chewing the scenery. And I heard Robert Duvall talk about this once, and he said, you have to trust that the camera's close enough to read your emotion. And while Michael B. Jordan's character was really interesting and I loved it, it was a little tropey in that he was so big with everything, right? It was so theatrical and so over the top. Whereas T'Challa was like, had the weight of somebody like a Martin Luther King or a Nelson Mandela, who realizes that it really is about building the bridges. And so you see that in his actions, but you see him struggle with it and trying to come to grips with like his father. And by the way, I think if they hadn't framed it, you'd be okay with what his father did.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was the fact that he takes the stance of like, guys, this is such a slippery slope and so dangerous to head towards vengeance, to not think about other people, to not do the outreach, to not help, that I was like, God, so you've got Warmonger literally making a great point, and then you've got T'Challa who's saying, but understand what happens when you go down that path. And okay, now's where my history gets dangerous, and hopefully you'll keep me in check here. But it's my understanding that the reason that Malcolm X ended up getting assassinated was because he started to take a more Malcolm approach of saying like, actually going this crazy, we're just creating more problems.
That's exactly correct.
And so they were like, well, fuck that. And they killed him because he was backing off. But I think that I literally have the chills. So that to me, the movie ends up dealing in this incredibly profound, because it's a mass market movie. That's what made it so interesting. Because look, there are more direct ways, maybe even more poetic and profound ways to deal with it. But to deal with it so clearly in a mass market film, to come out and say, at the end of the day, you have to build these bridges.
Yeah.
I was so into it because it's so real. And so to give people real life context, so I'm upstairs literally moments before, in fact, you came and grabbed me. So we're about to really create our first comic, which I'm so fucking excited about.
Exciting.
And literally we've partnered, I prefer to think of. We've partnered with one of the greatest minds in comics. I can't wait to announce who it is. And Eisner Award-winning writer. I mean, just fucking, this guy is in the history of comics.
Stan Lee, everybody.
Yeah,
Stanley's in our
quite.
house.
That would be amazing. Someone with a little more longevity. So to be in that meeting and talking about, we have to keep this thread of what's real. So we're going to be telling these stories, and they're going to be mass market appeal, but it's got to have at its core something that's absolutely real to the human experience. And probably better than any other Marvel movie. And some of them, the original Iron Man, Spider-Man Homecoming, have really touched on it. But this one, because it was so dangerous and they were really bold in doing it, I was just fucking blown away with them exploring this theme of revenge and when it spills over, but not making him just a throwaway.
They went for it.
And I think that also expressing that there aren't any easy decisions.
Oh, yeah.
There aren't any or solutions. Like, you can feel why it's been hard for Wakanda to out themselves to the world. You get why they did what they did, but then you're like, you see the other point of view. All these other people are suffering and you could help them. Why are you keeping it to yourself? But there's no easy, because then you also see, well, look what certain people are going to use with the technology that you've kept hidden from the world. And then you don't, like, I'm very excited to see the next film in this because obviously things are going to come out to the world. And now we see, like, how can this technology actually help the rest of humanity, and how will it hurt it? Because there's no easy answers.
Yeah.
God, if they keep exploring it deftly, like, that in and of itself becomes fascinating to see them, like in Iron Man 2, where you get the backlash from him just saying, I am Tony Stark. And then it's like, well, they fucking blow your house up. And, you know, they're coming after you. So it will be very interesting to see if they take the complexity of that, where, one, there will inevitably be international backlash to the generations of isolationism and to watch people suffer and to not do anything. But at the same time, like, well, they've turned a leaf. Do you really punish them? Like, that's it's always struck me as an innately human and completely absurd reaction. So people do it every time. Like, when you finally go, oh yeah, we actually shouldn't have been that way. We should be this way. And then instead of being like, fuck yeah, thank you, you slap them around for not doing it sooner, which is absurd. But it's real. So if they deal with that in the coming films, it'll be really interesting to see him balance his role as a king and leader and being the superhero that also has to, you know, fight for his and what he's trying to protect. And so it'll be very, very interesting.
And I don't know all my superhero history, but now that I'm thinking about it, having a superhero also be like the leader of a country in the world, there's no other character like that. Correct. You know, there's alien superheroes, there's, you know, businessmen, titans of industry, but it's really interesting to have someone be, like you're saying, that politically involved with the world. So he's going to be a diplomat, but also a superhero. How do you deal with that concept? And they know who he is. It's not like a secret identity.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how wide you, obviously Thor, his father is the king, I think.
Well, I guess I mean on Earth, actually on Earth.
Yeah. So we shall see. All right.
Can I ask a plot hole question, actually? So the CIA agent, Martin Freeman, he's very surprised to obviously learn about all these technological advancements that Wakanda has been hiding. But he also knows about Black Panther. So I was confused by that. How does he not have more questions in general about what's the material they use to
I forget the name of it.
Vibratum?
That's it. Yeah. My
Something
guess
like that. I don't
is
think
he
that's
just
quite
probably
right,
thinks it's like he's like another Tony Stark, has developed this amazing suit and can do cool things.
Because he even says something like, it's a third world country. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you just saw him fight in like a super crazy suit.
Yeah. But, you know, it's almost like if you found out Tony Stark had this hidden kingdom.
Yeah.
But you just assumed, oh, he doesn't. He's just a businessman with a lot of money he could do great things with technology. Maybe that's what it is. I don't really think it was too much of a plot hole.
Accepting that they were able to create a suit and believing that they have an entire civilization that's hidden
is a big enough space.
That you'd be confused. But any of these movies, because I'll just tell you the real answer is it's not convenient, and to have to dive into all that slows the plot down.
Yeah.
And if you did that, people would bitch about the fact that you did it and that you could have summed it up much faster.
And
if you summed it up
I'm
faster,
the only one who cares.
So it's
Casey was in the theater.
I'm being nitpicky.
with her glowing pen.
I was like,
these
wait a
motherfuckers.
minute.
Like,
I know, like what?
So yeah, I think that look, stories are stories for what you leave out more than they are for what you leave in. So just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
All right, next up, case closed. This is where we take an important thing, theme, idea, moment from the film, and we debate it and decide who's right. It's called case closed.
I've never been more excited for a case closed. The question is, are the women of Black Panther the film's real superheroes?
Wow.
There's only one right answer.
I get that. It's only one answer. I'm afraid to say they're not. No, here's the deal. When I was watching it, no question. I'm going to flash forward and then go back. Okay. So I've talked about this before. My son and my wife, we always coordinate our Halloween costumes. And my son gets the choice every year for the last 3 years. And it drives me insane. Because I have all these ideas, but he gets to choose. And Brenda's like, no, we got to let him choose. For example, the first year he got to choose, he was like, I'm going to be Mickey. Mommy, you be Minnie. And Daddy, you be Pluto. And I was like, what? Why am I the dog? And it was just indicative of what he literally was trying to take Brenda, my wife, from me. So there it goes right there. And then I forgot what the second year was. And then just this past year, Thomas the Train. I was like, boring. And then this past year, he wanted to be Power Rangers, and I thought that was boring too and passé. But we ended up being a hit. But it was his choice. He was like, Mommy, you're the pink Power Ranger. I'm the red. Daddy, you're the... And I was like, don't say black. And he goes, you're the blue Power Ranger. So we did it, and it was fantastic. So I kind of already have an idea what it's going to be this year. I guarantee you it's going to be The Incredibles because the sequel comes out. So we're going to be wearing The Incredibles. But I want to be Black Panther. I want us to do a Black Panther theme. I want him to be Black Panther, and I want me and Brenda to be like the queens. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I already have the shorn head. I want to find a red dress and a spear, and I want to be friggin' Queen Okoye, and me and Brenda are going to be the queens. I swear to God. No lie. I want to be a friggin' queen. That's how much I love those characters.
I love that he can say that with utterly straight face, not ironic.
I'm telling you.
Be a friggin' queen.
I wish I could show you my search engine right now. I was searching today the Queen Okoye outfits, and I guess
isn't it General Okoye?
General. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I want to be a general, not a queen.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah. How dare I? But yeah, definitely. I have got to be that, and I want my wife and I to have the red dresses and the spears, while Ellison's the Black Panther. That is my plan. I got to somehow get Ellison on board on it. But that's how much I love those characters. So yes. They were the real heroes. They were badasses. The way she fought with that spear was amazing. Throwing it around. Oh, my God. And it's just like even, the part, out of all the moments she had amazing, such cool, badass moments. But the one that really, really got me, Martin Freeman's character, Everett, when he put his hand on Chala, and she was like, that look.
My theater loved that.
I'm telling you, the theater died because everyone knows that look. That's the look your mama gives you when you step out of line. And she gave Martin Freeman that look. Like, did you just... like, even Cindy upstairs gives that look all the time. And it blew my mind. And I was like, she's badass. She's about to bust up in his ass. And I was waiting for it because I was like, oh, something's going to happen later on in the movie where someone's going to touch T'Challa and she's going to have to, like, step up. But it didn't happen. But yeah, man, the woman kicked ass. Like, even at the end, like, they saved the day. Even though M'Baku and the other vegetarian guys rolled up, the guys who barked, even though they came and actually ultimately helped everyone out, General Okoye and her band of badass women who I'm going to be for Halloween, they're already taking care of business. So yes, they were the true heroes of the movie. And real quick before I move on, how friggin' Shuri, the sister of Black Panther, how her and Lupita's character, Nakia, and a couple of the other women were just banding together to fight Killmonger. That fight scene, I love that. They weren't giving up. They were just jumping on him, flipping, and with their red dresses that I'm going to wear for Halloween. I'm going to keep saying that. I'm putting it into the universe. Yes.
It will happen.
That is my answer, Casey.
I mean, what I loved is from the jump, they were so well developed, multi-layered, and just badass. Mm-hmm. So we meet General Okoye, and I love how she's introduced with T'Challa because she knows he's gonna freak out when he sees Nakia, his ex. She has to save him this is like the first movie of Black Panther, and the first thing we see him do, he totally failed. He doesn't fail, but I mean, she predicts the way that he's going to fail in a small way and has to come in and save the day. So I love that. She's like one of the most badass generals I've ever, I don't know. I was just like so thrilled with her performance and her skill, and just everything about her bravery. The end when she's fighting in that battle you mentioned where they're all fighting, and the rhinos charging at her. And I'm like,
that was horrible.
You hated that?
The rhinos were ridiculous.
Oh, maybe the CGI. But what I loved was that I feel like she's the person who commands the most respect of anyone in the film, and that is badass, and that's represented when the rhino stops and licks her face. I was like,
I belly laughed.
Oh yeah, I'm like, only her could get that much respect.
To jump in real quick, the only thing I wish they did differently from that was when her man stepped down and was just like, defending the country or siding with her man, whatever. And she basically put the spear in his face and said, "Yeah, I would kill you over country."
Yeah.
Like, just my own fantasy. I really wish he dropped his knives and was just like, "Man, I love you." I thought it was coming. I was like, "It's coming, it's coming." Oh, it didn't happen.
I would like that too.
Yeah.
But then beyond the general, Shuri, I love you. Like, having the smartest character in the movie be a young Black woman is amazing.
She was the Q of Black Panther.
Literally the Q.
The Q
100%.
of Black Panther. I love that.
The what? I'm sorry.
Q from
James Bond.
Oh, yes, correct.
She was the gadget
And
person.
what I learned, and please tell me you're going to do this at some point, in the actual comics, she becomes Black Panther. Please.
Oh, damn, I didn't
but
know that.
She was the wizard of Wakanda. Everything that was amazing and awesome and technologically advanced came from her brain, and to see a female represented that way was so amazing. And not only that, she gets to instruct the white dude on how, like, she's the reason that he succeeds in his mission. Just, I loved her spunk, and just her intelligence and being a woman in science and having that representation. So awesome. Loved her. And then Nakia. So we've got 3 strong female characters from the jump. And as soon as you meet her in like the first 10 minutes, you're like, wow, she's like what's the word I'm looking for? The kind of the heart of the film in a way. Like, she has her heart in the right place. She doesn't need T'Challa. She has a mission of her own. There are love interests, but it's like an afterthought in the best way possible.
Best way possible.
It matters, but that's not her agency. She has other fish to fry, and I loved all of them. I've never been more excited about seeing like females on the screen. Oh, and none of them have superpowers.
Yeah,
but to me, they're the superheroes. So.
And before I forget, the Nakia, the part that cracked me up with Nakia is when Ulysses, played by the great Andy Serkis, when he has this little arm cannon and he shoots the car and the car explodes. And we know that Okoye's on it, and she jumps off. But you're like, well, damn, Nakia's still in the car. How's she gonna survive that? And then just the seat rolls up with the steering wheel. I lost it. That's what I knew. I was like, oh, I'm in this movie.
Yeah. They're just so vital to every plot point and every success that happens throughout the film. And it was just amazing.
So I agree with you guys. So I'll just add the one thing that I really, really enjoyed about it was that it's taken for granted. So it's never made a big deal of.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh my God, you're a woman and you've risen to power, or you're a woman and you're smart. And it was the same way that setting it in an African country allowed them to not deal with being Black and being a king, being smart, being whatever. It was just, that's there, it's obvious, it's assumed. And the assumptive close, which, by the way, is one of the most powerful negotiating tactics you can use, like, just assuming that the person is going to do what you want them to do. And so it's like, let's say you're like with the guy that just joined our team. If I just walked in and be like, man, I cannot wait to get started. This is going to be amazing. That's an assumptive close, right? Because it goes past the part where I have to convince him to join the team. And you just go right to just assuming that they're going to. So the fact that it's just assumed, like, that she's a woman. Oh, and by the way, she's like incredibly smart and all that. You never deal with it. It's not a plot point. It's not something we talk about. So that's really powerful. It lets women get to take for granted, yes, I'm a woman, but what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, really powerful. Now, I will say that on the technology points, as you bring that up, that was one of my problems with the film, is like vibranium. I think that's a word.
I think it's what it is, yeah.
It just like, it's fairy dust. it solves every problem. He's dying. Stick a vibranium ball in the bullet wound and take him back and dip him in some vibranium. And it's like, and he's fine. But it also creates like these incredible trains, and so it's just like
with a lot of hard work and smarts by Shuri.
But I want to see that. That's one thing you can't take for granted, because the way it's depicted is like it's effortless, right? That vibranium just does everything, and that's why people want to steal it and get a hold of it. If it were like plutonium, and it's like, well, plutonium's nothing. In fact, it's radioactive and it kills most people, but you give it to the brightest physicists in the world, and then it was a race for the physicists to be able to do something with it.
And they can power the DeLorean with it once you go 88 miles per hour.
So imagine for a second that you had the, what was the guy's name? The gorilla guy? M'Baku. So you've got M'Baku. Let's say that he also has it, but they don't know how to do anything. And they're actually trying to kidnap the sister because she's the only one smart enough to do something with it. Then it becomes really interesting, because having the material in and of itself, it doesn't do what you want. You have to know how to unleash its power. So that's something, and maybe they'll develop it more in future stuff, but it'd be interesting to see that.
I hope that they do, and I don't know, I can't read minds, but I'm thinking they may go more into what you're talking about, because I read an article where one of the executive producers at Marvel said she's the smartest character in the entire Marvel universe. Wow. Smarter than Tony Stark, smarter than Bruce Banner. So like that leads me to believe that they have, something coming up where we're going to see why she's so smart. And yeah, that's also bitchin'. So
that would be cool. I think they could have done more to hint at that now. And I would say that that's definitively not in the movie. We know she's funny, and we know that the metal is so special that it allows you to do all these crazy things. We don't know that she has some particular ability to get greatness out of it, because there's no way that civilization has come into power just in the time that she's been old enough to be creating things.
That's interesting.
So it's like, meh. But hey, look. Minor point, but that would have been neat to really see her intelligence.
Her brilliant, just because anytime we like.
But do you feel Q's brilliant? I mean, Q has brilliant things, but you never get his sense.
I've always thought he was brilliant.
Really,
his scenes were always my favorite. Like, just like, oh my God, here comes a Q scene. What is he going to come up with in this movie? And it's just, to me, I always found that not just as like, oh, these are cool gadgets. This guy has come up with such cool things. So the second they showed her with her inventions and how excited she was about it, it was something. I was like, this is more than just his sister who teases him, which I thought was cool. She's intelligent.
And because she had to operate them, basically. Anyone else who was using them, she was doing it. Even whilst in battle. By the way, let me tell you how to operate this flying ship while I'm fighting. So for me, I felt like she's the only one that knows how to use the machines that she's invented. So I felt that, but
I was disappointed.
We found something we disagreed on.
Yes,
we did it.
All right. Next up, what would you do? This is where we take a moment in the film. Oftentimes characters make a choice. Maybe we agree, maybe we disagree. And here's where we get to say what we would do in that situation.
Alrighty. So Killmonger makes it to Wakanda. Sorry.
No, she's making up.
Makes it to Wakanda and challenges T'Challa to the king, the throne, basically. He seemingly defeats him, and this is when the general has a decision to make, because Shuri and Angela Bassett's character are going to flee for their lives, and the general has to decide, is she going to flee with them and choose to keep her loyalty with T'Challa, or is she going to stay loyal to the throne and this new king, as her position would suggest that she does?
Man,
what would you do, Christopher?
I've talked about this before with what would you do's, and again, growing up in a military family, when it comes to the military, there's a hierarchy, there's an order, there's a respect, and it's just these rules of engagement, and there's just rules that you just have to follow. And as a general, I definitely would have stuck around with what I think her intentions were, to keep things in check. She's someone of power in this kingdom, and here's this guy who is still an outsider. Yes, it's his birthright, but he is still an outsider who has assumed control, actually, by rule, has taken the control back. But I would definitely stick around and, you know, maybe stage a coup if needed, or just keep an eye on him, whatever, or even help to steer him in the right direction. Because after all, she is the general. He needs this army to do whatever he needs to be done. He can't do it by himself. She's the general. She has to be that voice of reason. Because in any army, in any government, the generals, believe it or not, have much more power than, you know, people let on. They have a lot of power. Google Iron Triangle when you get a chance with the U.S. government. So, but yeah, so I definitely would stick around, easy, and try to either stage a coup or keep them in check and make sure that, you know, things are done correctly.
I think the one thing that is clear by the end of the film, as far as where Okoye stands, is she stands for Wakanda.
Yes.
The most important thing for her is her country. And so she's going to do whatever it takes to protect the country, what's in the best interest of the country. And I think I agree with you. I think in that moment, it's not in the best interest for the general, the effectively second in command after the king, to flee the country. You've got a whole country of people that are going to need you there, especially with this new king that we know nothing about. You don't know what he's going to do. He's got some violent tendencies. So I think she made the only decision she could at the time. And she even said something like, you know where my heart lies. So it's not that she supported this new king, but I think she just knew her duty to Wakanda was more important than her personal feelings at that point. And so I never felt like she's chosen the wrong side, just that she's doing anything she can to keep Wakanda together and strong. And then by the end of the film, she's able to still, she keeps her honor, she keeps protecting the country, and she's able to then help bring the rightful king back. So I would have made this, if I was her, I would make the same decision, hopefully.
So regardless of what I would do, I would say that moment in the film was one of my favorite moments, because it heightened that tension where you just assume, because everybody in the theater is thinking, oh my God, I can't believe he won. And I don't know if you guys felt this. When he fucking picked him up and threw him over the edge, I was like, they actually killed him. I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, there's real stakes in this shit. And I was like, they're gonna bring him back. I know they're gonna bring him back. But then he gets stabbed, he gets thrown over the edge, and rough. I was like, I really thought he was gone for a minute. After because he's dead for I don't know, 7 minutes of screen time or something. Yeah. It wasn't like he disappeared. He a bird flies up and he's on the bird
there was
spaceship.
No hint that everything was okay.
I thought, wow, these guys aren't fucking around. And because I don't know the lore of Black Panther well enough, I didn't know does Warmonger come to power for a while and then he gets overthrown. So I thought, wow, this is really how it would be, because there would be people that would be loyal to the country, to the throne, to the crown, however you want to think of it. And honestly, normally I would think in any other situation, you go with the person who's right. If you've got one guy with a pure heart and he's the one that you should be leading, fuck, you rebel against the guy that's the evil guy. And then I thought, wait a second, you're the general, and it is your system for a very long time that says it is a challenge between people of birthright and whoever wins, wins. So what you're saying, it's basically law of the jungle, right? That's exactly how lions come to power. They challenge the alpha, and if they beat him, the pride is theirs, and that's that. And it is the way of things. That's not even fuck movies for a second. It is the way of things.
Gorillas, everything.
In every other animal kingdom that deals in groups and prides like that, one alpha can dominate the entire group, and the only way that they get usurped is if somebody challenges and beats them. So I was like, okay, well, that's the logic of the kingdom that we're in. You can't, because your guy doesn't win, all of a sudden you're going to be childish and back off. That seemed crazy. And so I actually loved the moment where he accepts that he's lost. T'Challa accepts it. He was prepared to die. And he freaks out at the Forrest Whitaker character for interrupting it. He's like, "What are you doing?" Like, and it's only because he stabs him then that it's like, okay, well then the natural order now is broken. You didn't need to kill him.
Yeah,
but it was like
he
T'Challa accepts that I've lost, and it's like while you would be crestfallen that the guy you want to win doesn't win, like that's what you guys have decided. So either you have a stupid system which should have been overthrown eons ago, or you believe in the system and you want the most powerful person in power. They literally make the guy fucking drink a juice to take his powers away. Like
I wanted some of that
serious
juice. I
about
was like,
this.
that looks so good.
Oh, I want the juice that gives you the power. Like
I was looking at the grape flavor. I was like, I bet it tastes like grape. Like I was that guy.
that didn't quite cross my mind. So oddly enough, I find myself saying that, like the general, I would have said, this is our system and there needs to be some continuity. All right. Our last segment. Where are your thumbs at? This is where we break the film down on two planes. One, cinematically, is it a good movie? Is it a great story? And then the other is mindset. Are there things that we can learn about our own life, about the way we should think, believe, that we can take into the real world? So without further ado, where are your thumbs at?
Man, my thumbs for the movie, cinematically, fantastic. Although some of the CGI was weird. I thought of How You Love How Spider-Man Moves in Spider-Man Homecoming. And I was thinking, when I was watching it, I was like, I bet Tom doesn't like how Black Panther moves because it's different. It was fast, but there was something kind of stiff about it. Glitchy. I can't quite get my mind around what was wrong with his movements. So to me, that was a problem, but it didn't stop me from loving how beautiful the world looked, especially the wide shots of the jungles and the animals running through, or the plains, I should say. It was just beautiful, and I love the characters, like I mentioned earlier. Mindset, same deal. I don't even want to rehash what I said, but just the undertones and the themes, and they really tapped into culture, you know what I mean? Like the things that people know about that didn't have to be heavy-handed, like, this is what you should learn. They just threw it in there, and if you knew it, you knew it. If you didn't, you didn't. If you thought about it afterwards, you thought about it. But it wasn't just in your face. I loved it. And just to get a little deep for a moment, like I can think about it 1,000 times, and the reason why this film is important and the reason why people are making such a big deal about it, especially people of color. I remember being a kid and being like, literally asking my dad, where are the black superheroes? I asked that question. I maybe phrased it, are there any black superheroes? You know what I mean? And I remember my dad's answer was like, yeah, of course. He was like, Shaft. I was like, yeah, but no, that's not what I'm going for. Like, literally, he said Shaft. But, of course, there was Meteor Man with Robert Townsend, stuff like that. By then, I was older anyway. But it just wasn't enough. And it comes down to the root of the problem, and that's the misrepresentation of what the world is. You know what I mean? And it's more than just like, oh, it's unfair. We want to see a black superhero. We want to see an Asian superhero. It's more than that. If you get a chance, and God, I wish I remembered his name, Google this TED Talk about, it's this East Indian guy, this young guy who's talking about how Hollywood needs to make a change and start representing people of color, Asian Americans, all types of folks, and show them, because it's a trickle-down effect, because media is still what connects the world more than anything. Like, there's a reason why the box office is counted by international dollars, because the rest of the world sees it. It's huge. It's a big impact. So when you perpetuate the problem of whitewashing characters, and you seeing all these characters, the rest of the world starts to question the image of beauty. Like, take, for example, a lot of movies, overwhelmingly amount of movies, people of color are never shown as the love interest. So you have the rest of the world seeing this image of beauty being just a white person, whether it's on film, whether it's on magazine covers, whether it's in TV, whether it's in music videos. It's overwhelming. So you start to question. So in this guy's TED Talk, he's full disclosure. He says there is a big amount of people in friends, his sister, some girls that you know who are East Indian, who have problems with their own image of beauty, whether they're wearing color contacts or whatever, because this is what the world is showing them. How can you not question that? You know what I mean? So that's a big trickle-down effect. So it's more than just like, oh, let's just do a movie about a black superhero. No, it's representing the world. Like, for once, you get to see, wow, this isn't just about color. You're just flat out seeing yourself in this person's costume. I remember one Halloween, I was dressed as Spider-Man, and I took the mask off, and this smug guy came up to me and goes, "Hey, I have news for you. Spider-Man's not black." He was making a joke, but I wanted to bust his ass in my Spider-Man outfit. I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? But in my head, I was like, yeah, man, that's kind of unfair. I wish I had someone that I could dress up. I was an adult.
You didn't tell him about Miles Morales?
I know, right? Yeah. So, but again, this movie's important outside of the fact that it's just entertainment. So it was really great for me to see it. So mindset aside, just for my own personal feelings, I give it 2 thumbs up cinematically and with the mindset. So yes, I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I wish I could transfer myself back to being a kid and being a 4-year-old and seeing this. It would have rocked my world. So I can't wait for my son to see it. 2 thumbs up.
Nice.
Well, I mean, I'm going to echo a lot of what you said, but of course I'm giving it a thumbs up cinematically, despite a few of the CGI issues. And I will say, I didn't think of it until you mentioned it, but the fight scenes did, at least the ones where, like that car chase scene, where they're chasing after Claw, there was something about that where I couldn't quite tell what was going on. And so the badass moments that you're kind of used to seeing a superhero perform didn't quite reach me as much. But outside of that, everything else about the film was so amazing that I can overlook that, and maybe they'll improve that for the next one. But the performances, the casting, and for me, kind of going off what you're saying, the representations of women, and just like what you said, that they were just that way. There was no discussion of how they got there. They were just the top general, the smartest person in the room, and like the most humane person in the room. And so I loved that representation. And so I'm going to give it a huge thumbs up also for mindset for all of the reasons you stated. Yeah, I can't say it better than you. So 2 thumbs up.
Nice. So I think that this film unquestionably has problems. I think that the CGI, there were moments of just like horrifying weakness. I think that the fight scenes were slow and clunky. They weren't, and I mean specifically the fight sequences. The chase sequence I actually liked.
Oh, interesting.
But the actual fighting, like, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying that there's so many people out there doing it well. Like the bar has already been set, and so in a movie like this, you've got to match that. Especially when you go in CGI, it's like there's so much you can do, and I just felt like that was a miss. But when I say that this film gets a thumbs up as a movie, so forget about all the other implications, but just as a movie, it's a great film. I think it's one of the best Marvel films. I'm going to put this top 5 for me, Marvel. It was, minus the issues, which they all have issues, it's just a great movie. It's well directed. The acting is absolutely superb. The writing is really the breathtaking part of this movie. And I will say that was the best thing about this movie for me. The writing. It's just it in a mass film, they're tackling some of the most interesting issues. Certainly, it's one of the most amazing explorations of underrepresentation. It's not, I'm not quite capturing it, but it's the assumptive close on being powerful and being a woman, the assumptive close on being powerful and being black. It's just, it was the right way to handle it, the right way to do this in a mass way where it's just great characters. It's people thinking through really fucking hard questions and not flinching. And maybe that's the thing that I liked most about the writing. It didn't flinch. It just dealt with the fucking issue. It didn't try to hide it. Like in the 40s when they tried to be clever and talk about sex, it was like they had to go so far out of their way to fucking talk about it. And that's for a long, literally I'll say that from a mass film perspective, this is the first film that just dealt with certainly from an American perspective, race. And I just thought it was really, really well handled. It doesn't alienate people that aren't black, and yet shows people being superheroes, being smart, being generals, being like everything that are people of color. So it was just really, really well done. And then from a mindset perspective, the final speech he gives at the UN alone is worth the price of admission. That literally felt like it could have been a real speech taken from Nelson Mandela, was a person that I thought of when he was giving the talk. I just thought that was really deft, really on point. is exactly how people should be thinking in real life. I thought that was incredible. Also, I thought that they handled, like, how the fuck would you come out of the cloak literally that they had over Wakanda? Like, what is that first step? And so for him to say, we bought that building and that building and that building. One, also, when was the last time, like, you see references, Bruce Wayne makes that reference in Justice League where it was like, I bought the bank. Yeah. And you just think, oh, that's so fucking cool. And then you get Tony Stark doing the same thing. You know, it's like, you build this huge fucking building for the Avengers and I've got all the money for the technology. And you get to see a fucking bright, good-looking, charismatic, kind black guy also happened to be fantastically wealthy and saying, we just bought all this shit. And I thought that was really cool. So, yeah, man, fucking A. Like, I don't want to pretend that the movie doesn't have its imperfections. It does. But I really want to go on the record and say, this is, ironically, because it's a fucking Marvel movie, it's a watershed moment in cinema for the themes that it dealt with. It's going to be remembered. It's going to show up on a timeline of how we deal with inclusion in a way that is furiously entertaining, unflinching, and super effective. And I would punch myself in the mouth if I didn't mention people showing up in dashikis. Obviously, I'm the whitest fucking guy on the planet. And I was really moved.
Yeah.
I'm even a little bit emotional thinking about it now. And it had the same effect on me that seeing like a woman who, when people were dressing up for Wonder Woman and seeing my wife to this day, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but 3 or 4 days a week, she wears Wonder Woman bracelets. Little, not like the actual bangles that she wears in the movie, but with like Wonder Woman logos on them and stuff, because it's so meaningful to her. And I think that giving people that reflection where they don't have to like teleport themselves into something that they don't see in the mirror, where they just get to like really see themselves.
Big deal.
So fucking cool. Yeah. And for the first time I got that like on a really emotional level, because when I saw people wearing fucking dashikis, I was like, when you're and I don't know how to refer to it, because it's like sort of cosplay, but it's not. Like it was way more than that. And I saw other people light up seeing the people that were there in dashikis, just being like,
oh yeah.
I felt
and some
like
people
I was
had
living
fun
through a
with
moment.
it too. I don't know if you saw online. Some people had fun with it. This one guy that's trending showed up dressed as Prince Hakeem from Zamunda from Coming to America.
Really?
But I was dying. I was like, this guy showed up to the theater as Prince Hakeem. And there's this other video, which I'll show you guys after this, where like there was a whole tribal line and they had the drums and they were coming up the aisles.
Wow, at a movie
drums.
theater?
I was like, what theater let people roll up in the theater with some drums? What?
It wasn't an arc light. I will tell you
I
that.
can tell you that. Yeah, maybe Magic Johnson did. I was like, why wasn't I at that theater? I was dying.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right, guys, this is one I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is going to be talked about. It is going to be remembered, and it is really good. All right, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care.